Okay, when you picture World War II, what comes to mind? Tanks, right? Planes, machine guns, total modern warfare. But what if I told you that in the middle of all that, there was a British officer who charged into battle with a Scottish broadsword, a longbow, and a set of bagpipes? I'm not kidding. His name was Lieutenant Colonel Jack Churchill, and his story is so wild it sounds like it was ripped straight from a movie script. But as we're about to see, it's absolutely 100% real. And that quote right there, that's how Jack Churchill himself described one of his most famous actions. It's just perfect, isn't it? It captures exactly who this guy was. He was a man who felt like he was from another time, a warrior from a totally different era, just dropped into the biggest conflict of the 20th century. So, what was this action he compared to the Napoleonic Wars? Well, it all comes down to this number, 42. That's the number of German prisoners he managed to capture in a single, unbelievably bold raid in Salerno, Italy. But the number isn't even the craziest part. It's how he did it that's truly mind-boggling. That's right. It was just him and one other guy, a corporal. Churchill snuck into a German observation post, armed with only his broadsword, and somehow captured an entire mortar squad in 42 soldiers. And then, get this, he marched them down a mountain pass, with the German prisoners themselves pushing carts carrying their own wounded. This one feat of incredible guts tells you so much about the man they called Mad Jack. So you have to wonder, right? How does a guy like this even exist in the 20th century? To really get it, you've got to look at his life before the war. Because the thing is, his wartime persona, it wasn't an act. It was just an extension of the adventurous, nonconformist life he'd always lived. Let's just walk through his path for a second. He graduates from the super prestigious Sandhurst Military Academy in 26. But after a decade, peacetime army life was just too boring for him, so he left. Then, in 1939, right on the verge of war, where is he? He's in Oslo, representing Great Britain in the World Archery Championships. Of course he was. But as soon as Germany invaded Poland, bam, he was right back in the army, ready to go. So what was he doing in between his army stints? Well, this just proves he was never going to live an ordinary life. He was a newspaper editor, a model, and he even had a small part as an archer in the movie The Thief of Baghdad. On top of that, he was a competition-level bagpiper and loved to just ride his motorbike across Burma. See, this wasn't just a soldier. This was a professional adventurer. So when the war kicked off, it was like the perfect stage for a man with his, let's be honest, his eccentric talents. He volunteered for the Commandos, Britain's elite special forces, which was the perfect place for his particular brand of bravery and refusal to do things by the book. And this picture, it just nails his signature style. There he is, leading a training exercise, sword in hand, just like always. The story goes that he truly believed any officer going into battle without his sword was improperly dressed. And, of course, he always had his longbow and his bagpipes with him for every single mission. Now, this is the moment that really made him a legend. During a raid in Norway, as the ramp of his landing craft slammed down on the beach, Churchill leaps out playing March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipes. Can you imagine? It was the signal for the other commandos, and for the German defenders, it must have been the most terrifying and confusing thing they had ever seen. Okay, so this brings us to the most famous story about Mad Jack. It's the one everybody asks about. The ultimate legend, right? The last recorded longbow kill in wartime. But did it actually happen? And the answer, straight from the man himself, is nope. As much as we all want to believe it, Churchill confirmed that his beloved bows got crushed by a truck earlier in the campaign in France. So the key takeaway is, while he definitely carried the bow, that legendary kill is, sadly, a myth. But his luck, incredible as it was, couldn't hold out forever. In 1944, he was in Yugoslavia leading a raid with Tito's partisans when his unit came under heavy fire. A single mortar shell landed right in the middle of them. And just like that, everyone was killed or wounded. In an instant, Churchill was the only one left standing, all alone. What he did next is, well, it's maybe the most defining moment of his entire life. He knew he was about to be captured or killed. He didn't surrender, he didn't try to hide, he just picked up his bagpipes and started playing Will Ye No Come Back Again, this defiant, heartbreaking song. And he kept playing until a grenade knocked him out cold. The Germans were so stunned, they just took him prisoner. And that's how he was captured. But even as a prisoner of war, the story of Mad Jack Churchill was far from over. In fact,
You could say his time in captivity only added to the legend.
At first, his captors had no idea what to do with him. They thought that any high-ranking British officer named Churchill had to be related to the Prime Minister. So they flew him all the way to Berlin for special interrogation. The great irony, of course, is that he wasn't related to him at all.
His eventual liberation was just as weird as the rest of his story. In the last days of the war, he and other important prisoners were in a camp guarded by the SS. They were terrified they were about to be executed, so they managed to get a message to a regular German army officer. And in this totally bizarre twist, this officer marches his own unit in to protect the Allied prisoners from the SS. The SS guards, seeing they were outnumbered, just left, and the prisoners were free. After the war, Churchill's spirit for adventure never really faded. I mean, he didn't just settle down into a quiet life. Of course not. Instead, he started sailing old coal-fired steamships up and down the River Thames and spent his free time building these incredibly detailed, radio-controlled model warships. He lived this full, eccentric life right up until he passed away in 1996, at 89 years old. And his legacy is absolutely secure. In 2014, decades after he made that famous bagpipe charge in their country, the Royal Norwegian Explorers Club officially honored him. They named him one of the greatest adventurers of all time. It was just a perfect tribute to a man who truly lived by his own extraordinary rules. All of which leaves us with one last question to think about. In a war that was defined by industrial might, by anonymous long-range killing, why are we still so fascinated by the story of one man with a sword and some bagpipes? Maybe, it's because his story reminds us that even when facing a machine, the incredible and, sometimes eccentric spirit of one person can still make an echo that lasts through history.